Dobry is mostly good today. So what that means is, hello, good morning, Jesus loves you. Amen. So I did get to learn a little bit of Ukrainian. So I'm going to try to share the whole 8 days with you in just a little bit of time. There's a lot here, a lot to go over. I will do my best. Keep everything up and running. Okay, so let me open in prayer. I wrote out everything that yesterday I was here for many, many hours preparing, and I kind of wrote out everything so I wouldn't forget anything. So I want to open in prayer. Father, your word says, we have not because we ask not. Lord, I ask today, enlighten our mind with truth, inflame our heart with love, inspire our will with courage, enrich our lives with service. Pardon what we have been, sanctify what we are in you. In order what we shall be in you. In Jesus' name I pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to take you all on a walk. We're going to walk together. I would ask you all to get up and start walking, but I'll leave you where you are. We're going to take a walk. We're going to take a journey. Within Operation Christmas Child, one of the things that the children have the opportunity to do is go on a journey. The journey from the beginning to the end. It ends in the greatest journey, which is learning about becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ. So, we're going to start out on our walk in Ephesians. Ephesians 2:10. Ephesians 2:10 this year, 2018, is Operation Christmas Child's theme verse. This year we're celebrating 25 years. It's the longest ministry running of its kind in the world. So Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, unto good works, which God has before ordained that we should walk in them." So we're going to talk about the walk a little bit. Ephesians 5, 1 and 2. Ephesians 5. Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also has loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savour. And in Romans 5:8. Romans 5:8. But God commendeth his love towards us in that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So we're going to talk a little bit about a walk. When Jesus walked to his death, he walked for us. He walked to the cross for us. The rich ruler, he walked and followed Jesus. He made the first move. We have to walk and make that first move towards Christ. The Good Samaritan, I kind of giggle as Rich was talking this morning and used this Good Samaritan in Sunday school. The Good Samaritan, he walked towards the beaten man. He walked with him in paying for his debt and taking care of him. He made the first move towards that man. Thousands walked after Jesus, following him, to hear the good news. And why? It's all for love. Love makes that first move. We want to have that love, that embrace through Jesus Christ. We want to have that comfort. So I'm going to take you on a small journey of 8 days on a walk. Okay, so while we walk in service and in love for Christ, and where Christ shows us his favor. He showed me favor by allowing me to walk the journey to go to Ukraine. It was a long journey. It took about a year before I actually went on the journey. The journey, I'll do my best to walk you through as Christ leads me. As it all began, I was, Julie and I and Sister Kathy, where it all started, that I knew of. It started months before I even knew. Pete and Cecil, Pete Gorzak and Cecil Polydor, our managers, they had put my name to Samaritan's Purse as an invitation to be able to even go. I didn't know nothing about it. The phone call, we were doing a shoebox filling party at our house, and Cecil had called me, and he asked me if I was sitting down, and I said no. He says, you're going to want to. I said, why? And I did, and he told me, and I was just, wow. I just could not believe that. It was a huge opportunity to be invited. Only 300 people in the world get invited to a distribution each year. That's a very small amount of people. It was a huge honor. And when we got there, we found out it was even a huger honor to be there. It's been 10 years since the United States has been in the Ukraine. The last time that they went, there was like 100 people that went. There was hardly enough time with that amount of people to really experience the distribution. So this distribution, this trip, the Harvest Vision trip, we only had 32 of us going. So it was a very small amount of us, and there was 6 staff from the United States. On the other side, the national leadership team, that's them, and we had 5 of them who took care of us, handled everything. They were the main team. This man right here, that man right there, over here, he's the main coordinator for the Ukraine. His name is Sasha. Wonderful man of Christ, very blessed man. He's the one, he handles the more dangerous parts of Ukraine. We were not allowed to go to that part. The eastern side of Ukraine is in war, and keep them in prayer. That's a prayer request. It was definitely a life-changing experience to be able to go and do this ministry in the Ukraine. So on our walk, we first got our phone calls. Then through the year, we prepared ourselves, getting emails as they were preparing us, Samaritan's Purse was preparing us. And then we began to prepare our hearts for the journey. We had things that we received in the mail, and this was our book that we had to follow for any questions or anything that we needed to know. Ukrainian phrases, different prayer things, all kinds of stuff. So you can take a peek at this. This is a book that we had to kind of follow by. We had specific things that we were not allowed to do and things that we were gently allowed to do. We had to stay within our group at all times. We had security detail. And it was very planned. I mean, every detail was very planned. So as we were walking through our journey preparing, we got to the point where we were ready to go. April 25th, we all walked to the airports. We all walked to our cars. We all walked onto the planes, or however we were getting there. We all had to meet in Greensboro, North Carolina. So when we all got there, it was an exciting time. Everybody was excited, and everyone was excited, and let me go to my OneDrive. We got. Trying to get to the picture here. is where I was going to sit. We all got to the plane the night before. Oh, let's see. Okay, so the plane, we were on the Samaritan's Purse jet. It was DC-8 jet. The jet was, there's the jet there. The jet was, the jet was built in 1958, and Samaritan's Purse, Franklin Graham, they bought the jet in the early 90s. The jet takes at least 70 trips a year around the world. Right after the day that we were coming back, the pilots, there's always 3 pilots on the plane and 2 stewardess. The pilots had as soon as we got back, they had to sleep fast because they were leaving for another disaster that happened the night before. And they were leaving for, I don't remember the name of that country. They were leaving for there, and then they were going to Hawaii back to back. So the pilots are very busy. That jet goes 24 hours a day almost. The jet was an interesting ride. It was very cold, the floor. We had our feet on pillows or our blanket or whatever. The jet was, it was definitely interesting. It was tight quarters. This is pictures of us right here, of us finally getting there. When we left Greensboro, North Carolina, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, wheels were up. We got to Ukraine 11 o'clock that night. It was a 10-hour ride. Some of us slept, some of us didn't. Here, it was only like 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was kind of a quick, ride. Well, kind of a quick ride. It was cold because I have those pictures here also of us going over. The pilots would tell us before we even got on the plane, the pilots prayed with us. Everything was prayer. It was wonderful while we were on the plane and such. As we were flying over different countries, they would come tell us, we're flying over this now, flying over that. We were over Germany, we were over Poland, we were over, on the way back we were over Iceland. I have pictures of the glaciers and stuff flying over the glaciers, which was very interesting. Yeah. So there was a lot. We got to see a lot. We got to experience, things that I never experienced before. So one of the things that we definitely had to do was continue to walk as Jesus had wanted us to walk. He opened the door for us to be able to go. Here's us at the Samaritan. This is pictures at the Samaritans in Samaritan's Purse, where their gate is. They have their own gate at the airport, kind of like their own airport. Some of the people, Rena and I, and as we were going, that's us starting to board the plane there, and so I'm trying to, this is us on the plane. So you can come look at the pictures closer up and help yourself. So as we got there the next day, by the time we got out of the airport in Ukraine, it was 2:30 in the morning. We had to go to our hotel, get all settled in, and by then, it was closer to 3 a.m. So, and then we had to be up and ready to go by 6. So we were busy, constant. We didn't rest much. Plus with the time difference, that was a little,
And the jitters.
that was a little different, and not knowing what we were walking into. So, some of us never been in another country like that. I have not. It was a huge blessing, a great honor to be able to go. And I thank all of you for the donation to help me to be able to do that. So as we continued to walk, when we got finally to our rooms, Rena and I bunked together. Rena is Central Maine Church Relations Coordinator. It didn't take long for us to put our heads down and to try to sleep. It didn't happen. So for us, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Our bodies are still ready to, our day is still going on. There, it's totally different. So we had to try to switch gears quickly. So 6 o'clock came. We were still up at 4:30 and chit-chatting. And so we just were up. We just never went to sleep. The next day, I didn't sleep at all, so I was awake for a long time. I was wide awake. There was no way because of the change, the time difference. So, so in the morning, 6 o'clock, we got out. We're getting ready to go. We had to be at breakfast by 7. Devotion started at 8, and so we all went to devotion, and we had worship and praise. And Cecil, he spoke first. He was our first speaker. And as we were getting ready to walk through our distributions, we didn't go on one. We went on 5 distributions, 1 Greatest Journey class, which was amazing. And so to prepare, he wanted to prepare us to walk, how we were going to walk, how we were going to serve Jesus. So we had 3 E's of the purpose of the trip, which was encouragement, equip, and educate. We were to walk in their steps for a few days, these children. We were to equip them and show them how to walk towards Jesus. And we were to educate them, teach them who Jesus is, and to let them know that they are not forgotten. We got to see evangelism, discipleship, and multiplication. We watched the national leadership team. They prepared everything with the different churches a year in advance and gained relationship with them and the pastors. So as our trip was continuing on, we got to see the multiplication of what we do on this side. So what do we do on this side? We pack a shoebox with some items. It's used as a tool. We have found that using the word shoebox on that side is very demeaning. Using the word go box is what it actually is intended to be, a gospel opportunity box. Us 32 who went, we actually are all on that same page, using gospel opportunity, a go box instead of a shoebox. It just isn't enough. So let me give you a little background about Ukraine. Ukraine, it's a country in the Eastern Europe border by Russia to the east. Belarus is to the north, Poland and Slovakia is to the west, and Hungary, Romania, and Moldova are to the southwest. Kyiv is the capital, the largest city in Ukraine. Ukraine has long been a global breadbasket because of its extensive fertile farmland. And their ground, their farmland, the dirt is almost black. It's very, very rich, dark black. It's because the farmland that as we were traveling in our bus, it was just amazing. The farmland is just widespread. It's just everywhere as we were going southwest. We were either in Kyiv, just out of Kyiv, or we were south and southwest, different churches. Some of them we went to, there were community centers, where you would have a village, and they would have a center where the children could go, and they would be able to be safe there. It's not a very safe area at all. One of the things that the Lord showed me was to look at their faces, to watch their faces. And between the adults and the children, I've seen the same thing. You could see worry, concern, fear of the unknown. When is the next bomb going to drop on them? When is Russia going to take back over and they're going to lose their freedom? You could see it throughout the whole country. Let's see. Ukraine's the largest country within Europe. The majority of the population belongs to the Eastern Orthodox branch of Christianity, Orthodox Russian. There is a when we were on our way to one of the distributions southwest, we got, this is one of the, that's one of the temples there. I don't know if everybody can see it. That's one of them. Some of them were very beautiful. There's other pictures of different temples that were there. They're very beautiful. The roofs were all gold, shiny, and such. Buildings are beautiful, but inside, you won't have Jesus really there. The Russian Orthodox, very strong old Catholic beliefs. On the way to one of our distributions, we were able to experience a funeral. We're driving, they were walking in the road with the body, and the priest, he walks in front. I have a video of it, the best that I could, through the window. We had to be very discreet on taking pictures of this. We just kind of held our cameras up and watched, a little bit. The priest is in the front. Our interpreters and our national leadership team explained everything to us. Our interpreters, Vika and Oksana and Nick, they were amazing. They kept up with all of us. Vika and Oksana, I was on the red team, and there was, 15 of us, and they interpreted everything to us at all times. So they were very busy. We were always pulling them in some direction. What did that say? What's this? What's that? Wow, And so they were very busy, but they were very good explaining everything. So as the priest was walking down the street, then you had the funeral people of the person who passed behind him. And one of the, Sasha was explaining to us that the priest prays the person in, but that person, the family, the oldest family person, the person who's the oldest in the family has to make a note and put the note in the dead person's pocket as asking to hand it to Jesus or to God to give him permission to come in. That note has to be in his pocket. It's an Orthodox tradition. So I found that to be really, really different. So that was just one of the things that we did get to see, was that funeral. Definitely different than ours, Everything was so much different. But in some ways there was, the same. You still had people there that are lost, broken, hurting. And, and you've seen that everywhere, though. it was very much prominent. In Kyiv versus being in a little village south, you could see the differences. Kyiv was a little more ritzy, brought, a little more money, where in Southwest was not. Villagers live off the land. Animals, their animals, the village shared the animals weekly, and the animals would be on a leash, the cows, the horses, the goats, and they'd be in the front yard. And we got to, before we were able to go into one of the churches, Pastor Vitali's church, we were able to take a walk down the street. We were early. And we got to see all the chickens running around and how each home, how they managed their home. And the homes were run down. They were, there's pictures of them. They were run down, they were old, but it's all that they had, and they kept them up to the best that they could. And you would see, all their farms, all their vegetables growing, everything was done right there, because they couldn't run to Kyiv to go get, something from the grocery store or whatever. It just didn't happen. You couldn't do that, so they had to live off the land the best that they could with the animals that they had. When you're in an area like that and it's all kind of close-knit, and you got animals running all over the place, it smelled like you're on a farm. So that was always interesting. Let me move on here okay, so as Cecil, I'll go back to when our first day before we headed out. When Cecil was talking to us, he gave us 5 R's that we needed to do for the whole time that we were there. We had to record, recall, relate, represent, and we had to and reporting. Those were our 5 R's. We had to record everything. We had to journal everything. And I did. In my notes on my phone, I had a little notepad thing, and each day we all had a time. They gave us time to record everything as we were going, the best that we could. And then we had to recall everything, and we had to relate it. We had to relate to, what Jesus was doing, what we go through. We had to relate everything. And we had to represent. We had to represent well. While we were there, we were representing each state in the United States. Rena and I were representing Maine. And we had to serve well. We had to walk well. And we had to show our faith well. And so as we were going through, our first, after Cecil was done, we got some more information for the trip. And one of the things was, which I had already said about a distribution from the United States, was 10 years ago. Usually the UK and Canada, they've been there more often doing distributions. On the jet, we had 32,000 pounds of shoe boxes with us on the jet. We did not know how many shoe boxes. We weren't able to know that. But there was, for this year, 2018, 600,000 shoe boxes were being distributed this year by the national leadership team. We did not distribute the boxes that were on the plane. They're being distributed now. A lot of the boxes are going to the eastern side where the war is, where we were not allowed to go. It was too dangerous. Sasha goes there all the time. They, within the past 5 years or so, they've been able to build up 100 churches along that border of eastern Ukraine, where the refugees, the children and mothers whose fathers have been killed through the war, they're able to escape, and they go to these churches on that border. And Sasha and the national leadership team are able to get them there and then take them out of there into safe areas, which we were not allowed to know where they are. So that was really, an important piece to know. This year, they're planning on 20 more churches to be built up towards the, more towards Kyiv, on that area right there. So 120 churches within 5-6 years. That's a lot of churches. And they're not big or anything, they're just little planting of, somewhere where a pastor is willing to take these people in and to start teaching them about who Jesus really is. So that's a lot of work for the national leadership team to do. They handle a lot. The team has grown quite a bit. It did start with just, Samaritan's Purse had just a few people in there, and now it has grown quite a bit. The first distribution we went on was the greatest journey. We got those were the national leadership team. This is Lena and Sasha, Alex, Alexa, and Nick. They were the ones that handled us when we were there. That's the team. So on our first distribution, it was the 28th. Cecil was done. We're done with worship. We were ready to go. We were dismissed by teams. We had to get on our bus. Each bus was a Mercedes bus, and there was 4 of them. And they were all in the front of the hotel, ready for us to go. Each bus had a driver who works for Samaritan's Purse. This is a picture of the hotel that we were at in Kyiv, and you will see our buses right here. They're right there in the front. The hotel was lovely, and it's a beautiful hotel. We had our breakfast. Breakfast there in Europe is a lot different than breakfasts here. You had salads and vegetables and cheese and meats and eggs and all that kind of stuff. They fed us well. The first day we had to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We were not going to be able to come back to have lunch. We weren't going to be able to stop at a restaurant to have lunch. So we all made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and on the bus we went. We had water, a bag of chips, and we had a bag of snacks on each bus, and we had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Peanut butter and jelly over there is a lot different than our peanut butter. So our first trip, our first time out was TDJ. This is the first book that the kids get. This is all in Ukraine. That's the first book that they get. Before they get their shoebox, they get the greatest gift, it's called, and they get to start reading about who Jesus is. So this building that we were at, I'll just talk off. I won't go on my notes now. I'll just explain. So this is the greatest journey. And when we got to that church, we didn't know some things about it. Was actually a community center, but they had one room that they designated for church. So these kids here, they were going through the greatest journey, and they were on chapter 8 of the greatest journey. So the room that they were in, you can see the trees and all that in the background. They had the room decorated as the greatest journey, as they were sitting under the tree. of good and evil. It was all decorated. And the thing about it though was the room smelled horrible. It was not pretty. Let me get to this. All right. That building was under persecution. It was bombed. It was firebombed shortly before we were there. Let me get to my okay. Okay, so it was actually firebombed shortly before we were there. The pastor, Pastor Wayne, he wasn't able to be there that day. He was doing a wedding actually that day. But what we found out is that that building was under persecution. A few months before, it was actually bombed, the fire bombs. When they had, even though they had it decorated all cute, the ceiling, there was big, it looked like this, and it reminded me of being here. It had just round cloud-looking things just hanging off the wall, the ceiling. But they were to cover the holes from the fire bombs. And that's the only thing that they could do to try to fix it. They tried to fix things with paint as much as they can. Most of these buildings that we went to were held together by paint. They were very old and falling apart. During this, God gave that pastor a lot of different ideas as to how to make money for that village, that community. The pastors are in charge of the communities there, which are just villages, but they call them communities. And in that community is usually one building, a community center, where all the children go, along with the school. And the kids there, that's where they would be most of their time. They were safe. Their parents knew where they were, to where the parents could go out and make $1. They could work. They would be gone early in the morning. Kids would be at the school early in the morning, and they would get picked up late in the afternoon, late, 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So the schools and the churches, the kids were there all the time. So one of the things that they were doing is they tried to make money for the community, for the village, by growing mushrooms in the basement of this building. Then the government found out about it and started taxing them and took their money away from them. So they stopped growing the mushrooms, but the smell was still there. That building did not smell pretty, which was okay. We just kind of dealt with it and enjoyed our time there. We weren't there very long because we had deadlines, times when we had to be certain places. So this was called the Calvary Chapel Church. It started 23 years ago by Australian Wayne and Akana. I can't pronounce her last name, I'm sorry. They seek to use many ways to disciple the children. They believe in genuine transformation of their community. They have need to the church to impart only spiritual growth, but provide career and academic opportunities for their community. So they do both. They go under this. They actually have great persecution. These children, it's a mix of the community. These children that were doing the greatest journey, they're from different areas within this community. Let's see. The children here, they got their go boxes a couple months earlier. So that's why they were just starting to go through the greatest journey. One of the young ladies, this little girl right here, She actually, the next day, we didn't get to witness it, but the next day, one of the other teams did, I think it was the green team, they got to witness she was getting baptized. So that was exciting. So we got to learn where, how they were. We got to go through, different things on how they present the greatest journey, on how they start to finish, from the very beginning to the end. Okay, then we, after that, we went on our first actual distribution. So, first distribution, we went to a kindergarten school. We had 66 children, 5-year-olds, 5 and 6-year-olds. They were the cutest thing. On that distribution, the kids, see if I can find some of that. The kids were very well behaved. The children, there they are. It's this group here. The children there in Ukraine, it's a lot different than the kids here, how they are tended to. In Ukraine, the children are taught to control their emotions, control their excitement. They're not to express things like we do, giggle, joke around, kids excited running around. Doesn't happen there. They're to contain themselves. Vika, she was one of our interpreters. She was 17. She was just going to get ready this month. The end of this month, she graduates high school. She has to take tests, 3 of them, in language, math, and science. That will determine where she's going to be able to go to college, and if she's going to be able to if they'll pay for it, or if she's got to pay for it. So you still see the communism flavor within the government, still controlling certain things. Through the government, that's what the kids, when they graduate high school, they have to go through these tests. At that distribution, it was 66 kids, and they all started with, every distribution we went on, it started with teaching them about Jesus. They would go through conversation of showing them, find it, here it is. They would go through the greatest journey, they would go through the explanation of the cross, of who Jesus is, how he went to the cross, how he died, rose again. That's the first thing that they learned. Then they get their shoebox. They have to go through that first. The pastors all decide how they want this done. Some of the churches or community centers, there's a certain way, because it's mostly Orthodox, there's a certain way that they use, the national leadership team uses to even get into these churches. They can't just say, oh, we want to give these boxes, the Samaritan's Purse, teach them about Jesus, and it doesn't happen that way. They have to be very careful on how they do it. In the Orthodox religion, Easter and Christmas is very important. And the national leadership team has to use that to get Samaritan's Purse, Operation Christmas Child, into those churches, because you can't just go there. And so the national leadership team uses Christmas and Easter as an avenue to get even into those churches. As they try to explain to them, they want to give out these special gifts that are from Jesus. Most of the shoe boxes is the first time a child has ever received anything. Most of the kids don't have anything. At one of the distributions we went to, a little boy got a box and the grandmother was there. He was being raised by his grandparents. And the sister, she was older and she was expecting. And the grandmother, that when the boy opened the box, he had socks in his box. She told the boy that she was going to keep those socks for the new baby. And not for him, even though they would have fit him, but she wanted them to use those socks for that baby. Socks are important to go in the box. We never know, for what purpose. But it was a way that he was learning to share with his new sibling that was coming. So when the national leadership team, when they go to these churches, they use Christmas and Easter, because they'll say no immediately that they can't go there to give the boxes and to teach them about God. And they say, well, you teach God in the synagogue, in the temples. You celebrate Easter, you celebrate Christmas. That's what we're doing. We're just going to teach them about that part of Christmas and this part of Easter. And then they say, oh, okay, well, go ahead. That's how they get in there, using that. Other than that, they're not going. They're not going to be able to get in. So that's how they get into these churches. So after that first distribution, we would all go back, after each day, we'd all go back to our hotel, and we would journal on the bus as we were going back, write down everything that we seen, what we thought, and so on. When we got back to our hotel, we would first thing that we would do is we would go back to the room that we would have worship and devotion, and we would talk about our day, and we would write some more and share. Each team would share a little bit, and then we would go to our supper and we would settle down and we'd go to our rooms. The second day, I slept a little bit on the bus. Some of us kind of just crashed. The second day, I didn't sleep at all. I was awake the whole time. I could not sleep. It just wasn't happening. So here, it was in the afternoon, so I'm texting, talking to Rich, and I'm texting, and just laying, I just couldn't sleep. Anyway, so the next day, breakfast, worship, devotions, our next distribution that we went on was quite amazing. We went on 2 distributions the next 4 days. We had 2. So one of, just 1 second. I'm going to sit here a second. Is that okay? Just see if I can get this up. I'll pop up a couple videos and Some of the videos that they're not very long because I was trying to just do little clips and save battery. The one place we were at, where it was the animals were everywhere, the pastor's family made us dinner. This is Pastor Vitale, and this is his family. They had no running water in the house, they had a well, so they had us, each of us could not even go in the house without washing our hands first. Kind of some of us sitting around at the dinner. They just kept bringing food and bringing food and bringing food. It was,
just
and they don't have much. They don't really have anything, and they served us well. And we shared with them. That's Sasha. That's Pastor. Right?